Hey guys, welcome back. So today I have an important guest, Aiden from GOA. We'll get to introductions here in a moment, but before we get started with today's State of the Second video, I just want to thank our friends over at BDU for helping to support the Military Arms channel. If you guys would like to try out BDU for just 99 cents for the first month, please go by militaryarmschannel.com, click the big link at the top of the website there, and you can swing by and check out BDU, again, for just 99 cents a month. All right. Aiden, can you let everybody know who you are? You're with GOA and what your role is with GOA.
Well, thank you for having me on today, Tim. My name is Aiden Johnston. I'm Director of Federal Affairs for Gun Owners of America, and that basically means I'm a registered lobbyist that fights for the Second Amendment here in Washington, D.C.
So there you go, guys. You have an actual lobbyist here on the channel today. That's really cool, man. Because as a lobbyist, I mean, you're literally in the trenches. You're going around knocking on doors. Correct me if I'm wrong. I've never been a lobbyist, but you're meeting with representatives, their aides. You're actively trying to push a pro 2A, agenda on the Hill, and also keeping your ear to the ground for pending legislation or things that may be coming down the pipe that may be of concern to us in the Second Amendment community. Is that all true?
That's right. Yep. My job day to day is usually to take off my firearms and go walk around the halls of Congress and talk to members, talk to staff. Try to make sure that there's no compromises going on, that we're not selling out our gun rights for some farm subsidy or something like that. I hope I didn't offend any farmers. I couldn't do my job without the support of GOA members and our donors. So I'm just very thankful. I'm very passionate about our Second Amendment rights, and so I'm very thankful that I have this opportunity to fight for those rights here in Washington, D.C.
I think it's amazing, man, and it's amazing work, and it's important. I know a lot of people complain about lobbyists, but that's just the way Washington works. And without our lobbyists, especially Gun Owners of America's lobbyists being on the Hill, we could get blindsided by stuff and definitely lose our rights very easily. So, with all that being said, Let's talk about a recent ruling. Now, I haven't spoken too much about this in public just yet, but I know a lot of other people have chimed in on this. But Gun Owners of America and I think 3 individuals, myself included, and 2 organizations were involved in a lawsuit suing the government over the issue of bump stocks and how the ATF banned them. And what we've been saying since day one was this has never been about the stocks. It's more about what ATF did and how they went about doing it. And we won our court case. So we won it in 2 ways. First of all, we got the Sixth Circuit to admit that a bump stock is not a machine gun, so the ATF and the lower court got their hands slapped for that one. But then, more importantly, we saw the Sixth Circuit chime in on a very hot button issue that a lot of people are talking about in political circles, and that's the issue of Chevron deference. And just so people know what this is, basically, Congress makes a bill. Almost every law is ambiguous in some way or another. Instead of going back to Congress, these bureaucracies have been given wide latitude to interpret the law. And they do this through through a various process, like, they'll open up to comments. They'll say, okay, we're going to reinterpret this law. This is our new definition. We're going to put it out to comments for 30 days. We look for public's, response, and then you go through this whole thing. Then it goes on the Federal Register, and then it becomes the new law, if you will. Well, the issue of Chevron deference challenges this in the political circles because we think that too much latitude has been given to these bureaucracies. And a perfect example of that is what the ATF did with the bump stock ban and how they went about that. Aiden, can you tell us a little bit about that Sixth Circuit ruling and how important that win was, and how this may dovetail into things we're going to talk about here a little bit later in the chat?
The ATF, initiated the bump stock ban. We took them to court to fight back, and the courts decided that the ATF's reinterpretation of a machine gun was reasonable. The judges knew that it was not the best definition of a machine gun. In fact, it's not even a good definition of a machine gun. It's just a reasonable definition of a machine gun, and they applied the Chevron doctrine. Now, Chevron doctrine came from the Supreme Court. It's a court-made doctrine. Congress never wrote a law. Says, here's Chevron doctrine, here's how courts should apply it, and this is what agencies should be entitled to do. And so we spent the last 2 years fighting against, these anti-gun judges in courts applying Chevron. And there were multiple other cases, and every case failed on these grounds, except for our case in the Sixth Circuit. in a panel, and a 3-judge panel. And that 3-judge panel said Chevron doctrine should not apply in criminal cases. You should not be able to criminalize something with a bad definition. And that's exactly what the ATF had done here. And
Right.
so that's a major victory, not just for bump stock owners, for gun owners, but also for people who want to see the federal government reined in from criminalizing individuals arbitrarily like this.
And see, that's the biggest issue that we had here, and the biggest issue the court had with ATF's behavior was that the ATF had previously held that these were perfectly legal items, and hundreds of thousands, if not a million or more of these devices were sold. Then ATF decided the next day, you know what, we're going to reclassify these as machine guns. Oh, and by the way, if you don't surrender or destroy your property, for every one of them you're caught with, you're going to go to prison for 10 years and be given a $250,000 fine. The court said, whoa, ATF, you can't retroactively penalize people criminally for things that were previously legal. It goes back to the whole grandfather clause thing. If murder is not illegal today and Congress passes a law tomorrow banning it, but I commit a murder today, they can't go back and retroactively charge me for something that wasn't illegal at the time. And this is what the ATF has done time and time again. You can go all the way back to the street sweepers and the USAS 12 gauges, where they just arbitrarily decided they were destructive devices, and you either register them or you're in possession of an illegal AOW. And so it's just ATF has gotten away with this. Other agencies have gotten away with this. Pretty much every federal bureaucracy uses Chevron to mask their behavior and to justify their actions. So like you said, this is very big, and this will dovetail potentially into what Joe Biden's administration is now talking about doing with braces and perhaps even 80% lowers, or what they call, and I'm air quoting, ghost guns. So let's talk a little bit about that, because I really wanted to drive that point home. And I think you did that quite well with regards to what Chevron deference is and why it was such a big win. We were less concerned about getting bump stocks defined as not machine guns. We were more concerned with this issue of Chevron and the fact that ATF was able to do what they did without an act of Congress. And that's what made us go after them for their behavior, because you can't do this. And I think that's really, really important. So now let's get into some of the other stuff that has popped up. So we had Senator Menendez and Coleman introduced a bill to ban silencers federally. So this would outright ban silencers, ban their production, ban their ownership going forward. What is the word in Washington with regards to this? First of all, does it have any legs? And secondly, what is it they're trying to accomplish here? Because anybody that's ever used a silencer on a rifle in particular knows that they're not Hollywood quiet. I don't think these legislators really understand. For a fact, I know they don't understand the Second Amendment, firearms, and things they're trying to regulate. They just completely make stuff up based on bad 80s movies.
Right. Senator Menendez needs to stop watching as many James Bond movies and start watching some of your suppressor reviews. He has no idea what he's talking about with this bill. It's called the HERE Act, but with this baloney idea that it might save lives if you could hear gunshots, and because suppressors silence firearms, right? That's just patently false.
Right.
This ban has no chance of passing the Congress, right? Gunners of America has, fought this kind of legislation before. We're happy to stand by our members and push back here. This is not where the fight is. That's not to say that we're not paying attention and that I'm not, walking around the halls of Congress and rallying staff behind this, making sure they have the right messaging points and making sure they don't come to some sort of compromise. The real fight and what we need to worry about is universal background registration checks with H.R. 8, which is what Chuck Schumer has promised to vote on the Senate floor. It's something to watch, because these kinds of crazy bills show you exactly what Democrats want to do and anti-gunners want to do to your rights. His bill, it basically says suppressors are illegal, and then here's a grant program to buy them back, which they never owned.
Right. It's like, you gotta love government buybacks of property they don't own. So that's something to watch about. And I think maybe we should talk about this now. One of the biggest issues is the filibuster. And I think a lot of people misunderstand the filibuster and why it is so critical that Senators Manchin and Sinema hold their ground on the filibuster, because for a motion like this to actually pass in the Senate, either the suppressor ban or let's talk about the magazine ban as well that's been introduced, for those to pass the Senate, it's going to take a 60 vote threshold unless they get rid of the filibuster. Now, Manchin has made it painfully clear he has no intention of voting to nuke the filibuster. Sinema's not far behind. I think she's pretty unwavering in her position, and as long as that holds, bills like the suppressor ban, bills like the magazine ban have very little chance of making it through the Senate and to the president's desk for a signature, thus becoming law. So we talked briefly about the suppressor bill. I wanted to let people know about that, but also let's talk about this magazine ban that just got put forth. This is being put forth in both chambers, so the House and the Senate have their own versions of it. In a nutshell, it's basically going to ban magazines over 10 rounds. It's going to ban magazines that can be coupled together. So if you have two 10-round magazines that can be coupled together, they're going to count that as 20 rounds, and it's banned. It's going to grandfather existing magazines, but you can't transfer those magazines to a new owner. So if you have a collectible gun from the 1980s, it has a proprietary 30-round magazine, you go to sell it. Should this ban happen, you can sell the gun, but you can't transfer the magazine that goes along with it because it is contraband and would be illegal to do so under the current proposed legislation. So what can you tell us about that particular piece of work?
Right. So again, with Senator Menendez and his crazy ideas, he's just throwing stuff at the wall and trying to see what sticks, and this stuff is not going to stick. It's bad, right? It shows you what they want to do to our country. It shows you how they have no understanding of what this will do to people's firearm collections. They have no idea what it's like to reload a gun or how long it takes, right? They're supposing that it takes it'll take so much longer to shoot 100 rounds if you have to use 10-round magazines versus 3 1/3 30-round magazines. It's frankly absurd. But again, this is not really where the fight is, but it is something to pay attention to because this is a critical part, one of the 4 parts of Joe Biden's gun control agenda, right? He wants to ban the sale of so-called assault weapons. He wants to ban the sale of so-called high-capacity magazines, and he wants to prosecute gun manufacturers for the actions of criminals.
Right.
And so this is something that the president messages on, but it's not necessarily something we've seen move here in Washington, D.C. What we've seen move here in Washington, D.C., again, and not to sound too much like a broken record like most politicians do, but what we saw was H.R. 8, a universal background registration check bill, passed the House of Representatives, and then H.R. 1446, which would have just absolutely destroyed the NICS background check system and made it incredibly difficult to purchase a firearm with a very long wait period. Those bills passed the House of Representatives. They're sitting in the United States Senate. And like you said earlier, they're just waiting to be passed. And the only thing between those bills and them hitting the president's desk is the filibuster. It's not really the full, Senate process that you learned when you were in second grade. It probably put you to sleep where, senators have to get 60 votes to file cloture on a bill. Then they can have a vote on the merits of the bill, and then it can pass and go to the president's desk. No, what nuking the filibuster is all about is agreeing with a simple majority of votes, so 50 in this case, 50 plus Kamala Harris as the tiebreaker, and agreeing to ignore the current Senate precedent, right? We're going to agree that the number 60 is actually 50, and we're going to pretend like this legislation passed. And it's absolutely, it will destroy our democracy, basically forever. Once you get rid of that number, you can never put it back. As soon as you try to put it back, and then the next time something controversial comes up, the next party will just nuke it again.
Right. Just keep changing the rules. If you don't like the outcome of the game, just change the rules, and that's what seems to be taking place during this administration in a number of different areas, especially with regards to our Second Amendment rights.
Right. So yeah. Again, we just have to be very careful and hold those senators, Senator Manchin and others have publicly made statements that they I'm not getting rid of the filibuster, all this stuff, but we have to keep in mind, up until the last few months, Senator Manchin has never been the deciding pro-gun vote on anything. Right? He's a Democrat. He has voted anti-gun every time he's had the opportunity to, and nothing meaningful has ever really come up before. And so, do we trust him when this comes up? Well, he's made a lot of public promises, and I sure hope he keeps them. And we're launching a campaign to hold him accountable in West Virginia, to those voters who put him there, because he made these, somewhat pro-Second Amendment promises. But the entire sort of fate of this gun legislation rests on the promises of someone who's never been there to help us before.
I think it's important to stress, I want to urge our viewers to become politically active. One thing we always talk about on these streams is the importance of political activism. People will oftentimes say that my voice doesn't count, that nothing could be further from the truth. You work on the Hill. You know what happens when those phone lines start ringing off the hook and they get bombarded with emails. It makes a difference. It gets the attention of that representative one way or the other. Our voices do matter. We can win. We've had a number of wins. People tend to focus on the negatives, but we've had a number of very critical wins over the last few decades, and we're seeing more and more states become, constitutional carry states. We saw the Sixth Circuit ruling. We had the Heller decision. I mean, we're going to be facing people get defeated when we lose in one area and they ignore the wins in other areas. I mean, that's just the nature of politics, but we need to remain focused because we can win using the tools our founding fathers gave to us. So right now, the bills that are being proposed, like you said, outside of, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but there's definitely tactics that are played in politics. And it almost seems to me like they're just throwing all this sensible legislation at the wall just to let it get shot down under the filibuster. And then they're going to say, see, they don't want to play fair. They don't want to negotiate. So now we got to nuke the filibuster if we want to get anything done. It seems to me like that's why we're just seeing this bombardment of bills just being thrown at the legislative bodies. It almost seems like they're trying to make the case that they need to nuke the filibuster if they want to get anything reasonable accomplished. And that's what really concerns me most. And that's why I think it's imperative that we focus on that filibuster and we make sure that Sinema and Manchin and others and your representatives, these guys and lady may not be your representative, but you can still contact them, but also make your representatives well aware that you fully support the filibuster and you will, vote them out if they vote to nuke it. But, what are your thoughts on activism and where we currently stand? I mean, right now we're not at a super high alert level, but where are we? What should people be doing?
People need to be politically active, right? Like GOA has state groups and organizations. There's in every state there is a state group that's no compromise that you can join. So look those up. If you need some help, call the GOA office, and we'll point you in the right direction. But people need to get active on the ground in person. Right now, because of our Texas activists, right? Constitutional carry just passed, I think, the third reading in the Texas House of Representatives. That's an incredible feat right there, and that's because of grassroots activism from our Texas state director and her active members, right? Not just the members that sign up, for our action alerts. However, I do encourage you, if you want to fight on federal issues, the most important thing you can do is sign up for GOA's free action alert system. It's literally when, me and the guys at the office, like, we know what's going on the ground. We know what's the biggest fight. Is it, HR 8 or is it, some nothing bill that Sheila Jackson Lee introduced that's never going anywhere?
Right.
And we're going to point you in the right direction at the exact right time that it matters from Washington, D.C. And you can just, with a few clicks, you can send an email to your representative or to the representatives that need to hear from you. And it's the exact right message. Now, they listen to those messages, and that's incredibly helpful. The best thing you can do is to call your representatives. And I know your representative's a Democrat, or you always get the intern on the phone, and they have no idea about the Second Amendment, but they mark that stuff down, right? I was an intern once, and you tally who called in about guns today, and was it pro-gun or was it anti-gun? And when it's 300, 400, 5,000 people that called the phones, and no one could get any work done because the phones were so loud ringing off the hook, that influences members even when they're Democrats. And they get upset, and it changes their mind on things. It's incredibly helpful. Yeah. And so please, just if I could get that across. That's what people always ask me. What can I do? What can I do to help? It's really just call your reps, even if they're Democrats, and tell them how you feel. Call them every day. It does not matter if you called yesterday. Call about the same bill today. Yep. And give them an earful, and just keep it up. It's also good stress relief to do that. But be nice to the interns. Again, they don't really know what they're talking about. So,
one thing I think is interesting. So when the bump stock thing kicked off, we had Republicans that were introducing legislation or preparing to introduce legislation that would ban bump stocks through an act of Congress. And I think it was Representative Carbello. He was a Republican in Florida, and I had called him out in video, and I said, "People, here's his number. Call his office and let him know what you think about his proposed legislation." I got a phone call to the gun store, because that's the only public information they had for me. His office called the gun store, and the representative wanted to speak to me about calling off the dogs because his phones were just ringing off the hook, and he traced it back to the video I had made. He didn't win re-election. So it does matter. They do care when their phones are ringing off the hook because, like you said, you've been there, you've been present, and it causes mass chaos, and they're forced to listen to what people are saying because it's in their face and they're forced to deal with it. So absolutely critical. I can't urge people enough to be politically active. Go by gunowners.org. That's the GOA's website, or Gun Owners of America. That's gunowners.org. And again, as Aiden just said, you guys can sign up for free notifications. You're not going to get bombarded with, get a free Yeti cooler if you do this and all this other stuff. It's truly information. Every time something takes place in Washington, D.C., it's a concise email that allows you to be brought up to speed as to what's going on. And then on the GOA website, as he has already pointed out, there's the facilities there for you to go easily find your representative and easily draft a letter to be sent to that representative, and you can do that every single day, and I urge you to do so. So the GOA website, again, gunowners.org, is the best place to go to get this information. Also, a fast way to communicate with your representatives. So with all that being said, Aiden, is there anything else that's going on the Hill that we should be aware of, that we should be, let the audience know about?
The leaders of the left are coming after these senators in every way possible. The Second Amendment is one major tool. Make no mistake, they might actually abolish, the filibuster over the Second Amendment, but they are laying every single issue they possibly can at the feet of these senators and blaming their own, party members for not abolishing the filibuster, right? Human, rights violations of, immigrants or human rights for women, right? Or climate change, and we need to, revamp the entire economy, and all of these things that you might not understand. Right, you may be watching this as a single issue, Second Amendment supporter, but these politicians think in terms of all sorts of issues, and the left has been framing these reforms as necessary, or the world's going to end in 5 years. Right. And if we don't. So these senators, Senator Manchin and the other, few Democrats that are ostensibly with us for the moment, have all of this baggage weighing them down and all of these reasons to abolish the filibuster. And it's literally a promise that I don't even understand why they've made it. But thank goodness that they have, and thank goodness that we can hold them to that. And so being active and calling your representatives and especially calling Senator Manchin, especially if you know anyone in West Virginia, please, politicians like to listen as exclusively as they can to, their own constituents, right? So if, you call them and you say, I'm from Texas, I don't know how much Senator Manchin, cares what you have to say. However, they are the only thing between us and the repeal of the Second Amendment by congressional legislation, by every single thing that Joe Biden wants to pass. He knows that all he can pass, maybe is a universal background registration check bill, that H.R. 8, probably with some sort of, watered down amendments to it at this point, if it will pass. But if they can abolish the filibuster, then every single one of his campaign promises he will be able to follow through on. Now, I know you've also asked me a little bit about legislation that's happening in Congress right now. What else don't you know about that you probably should know about? The other piece of legislation that might actually pass, and it almost passed last Congress, and I spent a lot of time rallying staff against this and getting senators to oppose it. It's called the Violence Against Women Reauthorization Act of 2021. They tried to reauthorize the Violence Against Women Act last Congress, and like I said, we were able to defeat it. basically, this is a Joe Biden bill from the 1990s, and it gets reauthorized every so many years. And it mostly has just had a lot of big government spending to, just programs that have to do with women and domestic violence. Well, since the last reauthorization and in this next reauthorization package, the Democrats have put a bill in there to increase by probably millions the number of names in the NICS database. It expands the misdemeanor crime of domestic violence gun ban in the NICS system, and it adds a misdemeanor crime of stalking gun ban as well. Now, let me just explain to you what a misdemeanor crime of stalking is. Under the federal code, because of the 2018 Farm Bill, if you threaten someone's pet or horse or service animal, just a threat, then you can get a misdemeanor crime of stalking charge at the federal level. So, say you're shouting, your girlfriend's dog's barking real loud, and you're like, shut that dog up or I'll kill it or something like that. That statement gets you a lifetime gun ban under this bill. Wow. It's insane. And you even heard if you look back at Joe Biden's speech last week, where he was announcing his executive actions, he said, look, we've had a really hard time getting the Violence Against Women Act reauthorized, but we need this to protect women. Well, this bill disarms women. At the last red flag hearing in the Senate, a researcher named David Kopel testified, and he brought up a story of a woman in California, and her husband cheated on her, and so she broke up with him. She was filing for divorce. I think she kicked him in the knee or something like that, and then started carrying a Glock around her home for self-defense because she didn't feel comfortable with him. Well, the cheating husband filed a police report, and it was a gun violence restraining order under California law. That's their version of a gun confiscation order. And the police seized her Glock. This bill is used by abusers to disarm their victims, right? And that's just completely unacceptable. And the Democrats play ignorant, but that's because they don't actually care about rights or your rights or the Second Amendment or anything. It's just all about controlling people, controlling you, and taking guns away from people.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. All right. Well, Aiden, I greatly appreciate you coming on the show, sharing some insight with regards to the Sixth Circuit ruling, sharing some insight with regards to legislation that's currently pending in both the House and the Senate. And hopefully we can get some folks motivated to, become Gun Owners of America members. I support Gun Owners of America. They have over a 40-plus year history of zero compromise. They have never gone into an office and said, we'll give you this gun right if you give us this. That's not how they play ball, and that's why I support Gun Owners of America. You can, again, find their website at gunowners.org. And Aiden, is there anything that you'd like to tell folks with regards to GOA and becoming a member? I strongly encourage folks to become a member because you guys are growing very, very quickly. And I'm a Patriot member, which means I donate every month. And I would urge other folks to do the same if they can.
I just want to say thank you very much to you for having me on the show. And then to any of our GOA members watching, I just want to thank you so much. I think I have the best job in the world. And I'm so thankful for you guys for letting me have that job. So,
well, that's awesome, man. Keep doing it. The Lord's work in Washington, D.C., defending our rights and making people aware of what's going on. And I greatly appreciate it, guys. If you'd like to support us here at the Military Arms Channel, we're supported by you, our viewing audience. There is a link in the video description below. Give that link a click, and it'll take you over to our Patreon page, and you can join our Patreon family. We answer all direct communications from our Patreons. We have a great community over there where folks are interacting with each other, and you get early access to videos. Also, right here on YouTube, there's a little join button underneath the video player you're watching right now. Just click that join button, and you can support us here on YouTube. And last but not least, guys, please swing by and check out coppercustom.com. Thank you for 13 years of support. Aiden, I look forward to having you on the show again here soon. I greatly appreciate you coming on today.
I look forward to talking to you too. Thanks for having me on.
All right, man. Talk soon.